Thank you, John. Excellent. Before I get started here, I have to ask you all to do me a quick favor. So can everybody stand up really quickly? And make yourselves look really excited. If everybody wants to put their hands up, I'm going to take a quick picture, and then I'm going to explain to you guys what I'm doing. All right, so everybody, hands up. Woo, having fun. Thank you. All right. So what I'm doing right now is, how many people know who Matt Hines is? Right? Great. Most of the people in the room. I just tweeted at him. So he and I last night were, kind of trash talking a little bit over a beer, because that never happens, and because his session's going on concurrently in the room on the other end of the space here, and so I was like, oh no, Matt, I'm sorry, I hope I don't take all of the all of the attendees from your session. Because I think mine's going to be a really compelling session. He's like, no, everybody know. He's like, I got a bigger name, come on. Everybody's going to come to my session. So I just crafted a tweet that said, I hope I didn't steal all the attendees from your session at Matt Hines. So if anybody follows Matt Hines, if you guys want to retweet that at him, I'd really appreciate that. So excellent. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So thank you, John, for the very gracious opening. So as he mentioned, I am the Senior Director of Field and Partner Marketing at Demandbase. That is my day job. My side job is as an ABM evangelist and educator. So this is no lie. I have talked to over 100 customers over the course of the last 12 to 18 months about their ABM strategies. So, as he said, appropriately named, I have crowdsourced this presentation because every time I've gone in to give a workshop, either over the phone or in person to a different company, while I'm there to teach them things, I get asked questions. I'm challenged to think about things differently. And so all of those learnings have gone into this presentation, as well as the certification we hosted yesterday, and all the different types of education that we do as Demandbase around account-based marketing. So my first slide here, and so the one thing I can't probably do is accuse my CMO of stealing my talk track, but he did mention this during his keynote, and he knew I was going to talk about this in this session. But anyways, I've been with Demandbase since 2013. As he said, ABM was really this account-based marketing. People obviously knew what the words meant, but didn't understand it as a concept. And so we'd go to trade shows, and we'd have it up on our booth, and people would walk right by because they had no idea what it was. And then, fast forward to 2015, and people started to hear about it a little bit more, and it was definitely getting to that place of, it's interesting, tell me a little bit more. So 2015 was kind of where we started to have that first inflection point where people were like, all right, I got it, we probably need to do it, tell me how. Because people didn't know where to get started. So then in 2015, we started to build a couple of workshops. So heading up field marketing, we're always looking for good types of events to do. You can only do so many VIP dinners or executive roundtables. So we wanted to bring some content into the field. So we added our workshop series, which started out with the ABM fundamentals. What are the core components, core pillars of an ABM strategy? So people could start wrapping their heads around it. And then we started to dissect each of those pillars, there's 4, into a 1-hour workshop. And this is where our sales team started to take me into their accounts. I'm amazed that they still do, because I pretty much start off every workshop with, you can't buy your way into an ABM strategy. You can't buy technology that's going to solve your problems for you. You need to actually have that strategy first in order to be successful. Which is probably every one of my sales team members' worst nightmare, right? Because I'm like, don't spend any money with us until you have an ABM strategy. But they know that that is in fact true. Because if somebody doesn't have an ABM strategy and they buy all these technologies from us, they're not going to be useful, they're not going to actually have success with it, and they're going to churn from us as a customer. So having that ABM strategy is actually first and foremost most important. So then 2016 came around, and actually it was late 2015, and our CRO walks by my desk, and he's really good at doing this. He walks by and he kind of like makes a statement and walks away. And then all of a sudden you start thinking about it more and more and more. And so he stopped by my desk one day and he was like, you're doing all these workshops. Why don't we do a certification next year at the Marketing Innovation Summit? And walked away. And I was like, that's crazy talk. We're not going to do that. But then I started to think about it a little bit more. All our sales reps were bringing me in on more one-off kind of workshops, and I was like, yeah, you know what, maybe we do. Maybe we've hit that point where we have enough information that we can start to help people understand how to do account-based marketing. So thus, the ABM Certification Foundations was born. And then, of course, nobody can ever, there's no rest for the wicked. And so it was like, well, as 2017 came around, we were starting to learn more and more about account-based marketing from all these meetings with all these clients and customers. Plus, the conversation was shifting. It wasn't just tell me the basics of account-based marketing anymore, but it was tell me how to do it better, how to get more out of my account-based marketing strategy. And so that's where our advanced certification came from. So that's kind of been the evolution of the conversation. Like I said, I've flown all over. At this point, I think last year was over 100,000 miles. So it's been a wild ride. I've talked to enterprise level companies, mid-market, small startups, kind of run the gamut. Some manufacturing, healthcare, financial services, agencies, high tech. So what I'm going to do today is kind of anonymize a lot of those different conversations and come up with the 7 key questions I get asked when I go into these customer presentations. I'm going to protect, I've removed the names of the companies to protect the innocent, but a few of them are actually in the room, so they'll probably know who they are. But at the end of today's session, I'm going to try and talk for about 30 minutes to give you guys time to ask some other questions, because I'm sure there's going to be more. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So this was one of my favorite ones. This was a mid-sized company in the Northeast. Went in there, sat down with a SVP of marketing and his entire team, so it was about 25 people. We were sitting around a table. I did the ABM fundamentals presentation for them and walked them through all the different steps. And the SVP looks at me and says, okay, all that's great, but just tell me where to get started. And before I could open up my mouth, the director of marketing to his right says, now, I know what we're going to do. He's like, we're just going to do it and sales is going to love it. So how many people think that was the right answer? It was not. And I was like, and then it's like, and you can see the other people at the table, they're like, ooh, when he said it. So it was kind of funny. Apparently he's that guy. He's always got the right answer. So anyway, the fact of the matter is, that's the way that traditional or old school demand gen worked. And I'm going to put that in quotes because it really didn't work, and that's where ABM has come from. But sales and marketing need to be aligned from the beginning for an ABM strategy to truly be successful. So the old school model was marketing would run a bunch of programs, then they'd toss the leads over the fence to sales, and they'd move on to their next marketing program. So there was this big disconnect between marketing and sales. And so this is why marketing can't just do something and sales is going to love it. Because in the new model, marketing and sales need to be aligned throughout the entire buyer's journey, from the first step of identifying your target account list all the way through to that closed won deal. Because if sales and marketing aren't in alignment, the programs aren't going to be successful. How many people sat through the certification yesterday? Anyway, whoa, wow, hi, lots of people. So one of the sections we talked about in the advanced certification yesterday was that sales enablement is a crucial part of ABM success, because if we run programs and then don't enable our sales team to take advantage of them, they're going to fail, right? And so that guy saying, hey, we're just going to do it and sales is going to love it, it's not going to work, because you could run the best program in the world, but if you don't enable your sales team to understand those accounts, where they are in the buyer's journey, what kind of message you should be giving to them to help move them through that buyer's journey, the program's just not going to be a success. All right, so next one. So this one was one of my favorites. One of my favorite way of doing these workshops is when sales and marketing are both in the room, because it becomes a therapy session between the two sides of the house. So this one was a large enterprise outside of DC. And I was sitting there, and the SVP was one of those guys, and he kind of came into the meeting late, sat down, and I was talking for all of 3 minutes, and he's like, I don't understand what's going on. He's like, I already gave marketing my target account list. Like, what's the problem? Why aren't they just marketing to it, right? So there was also a flaw in that thinking, because while, yes, he had handed his target account list over to marketing, marketing had no investment in that list, right? They didn't know where it came from. Were the sales reps just like, I've got these Fortune 500 companies in my territory, I'm going to go sell to them, right? There was no data typically helping to build that list. And of course, as marketers, we're all now data-driven marketers, right? So we want data to help build that list. And so for both marketing and sales to be committed to it, they have to co-develop the list. And it shares that focus. You know, it has that common language where both sales and marketing are talking about the same accounts. You know, it's not like, well, marketing ran a bunch of programs, we got a bunch of leads, we're like, hey, we blew out our lead goal. You hand them over to sales and they only follow up on a third of them, right? In an ABM world, what you want is you run a program, you hand over all the leads from that program and sales follows up on all of them because they're on their target account list. So having that shared list, the one that sales or that marketing can bring data to, and then sales can in fact iterate on and reinforce, is going to make sure that both sides of the house are invested in that list and truly do market to and sell to that same list. Here's a little talk, and once again, if you sat through the certification, you've seen this before, but this is a little bit of a, you know, build that list, get agreement from your leadership team. The sales and marketing leadership team is one that we talk about a lot as being crucial to the success of an ABM strategy. Make sure that you verify and iterate it with sales. So originally I said, you know, marketing wants to bring data to the table. But the sales team, you can't ignore their in-territory knowledge, right? They do have things, they do have knowledge about that territory that the data isn't going to pick up. So you don't want to completely ignore the sales team's opinions about the list, but start with the data and then let them iterate a little bit with some of their in-territory knowledge, and then make sure that that list is updated at regular intervals. Now, a question I often get here is, well, how often should we update it? And unfortunately, I'm going to answer with the very ungratifying answer of it depends. But the reason for that is that, you know, if you have a really, really long sales cycle, call it 12, 18, 24 months, right, for some of those large enterprise, you know, 7+ figure deals, you know, you're not going to want to update your list all that often because you want to keep the same list for enough time so that your marketing programs can actually take a hold or take effect. On the flip side, if you've got a 3-month sales cycle, you might want to actually update that list every 1, 2, or 3 months. So it's going to depend based on your sales cycle and those sorts of things, but make sure that it's fresh. Make sure you're taking in all the new information that you have through the data that you can gather and update that list on a regular basis. All right, so here's the third one. This was a startup company in San Francisco, and they had typically played in the mid-market realm, which was where they sold to. But they came to us and they said, we want to increase our revenue from enterprise companies by 30% next year. This was great, right? They had a goal, they had a business objective that they were trying to achieve. So it wasn't just, hey, we want to increase, you know, our revenue by, we just want to increase our revenue from enterprise companies. No, it was by 30%. When you put that kind of number on it, now you know exactly what it's going to take, what dials you have to turn, how much more budget and resources you have to invest to get to that 30%. And then you can have the conversation of, well, okay, if we're going to invest enough to get that 30% here, we're either going to have to divest of this, or we're going to need more budget and headcount so that we can do both. So that's the kind of really discrete business objective that is really important when you're segmenting your target account list, because you don't want it to just, you don't segment for segmentation's sake. You want to have objectives behind each of those segments because you're going to invest a lot of time, money, and resources in each of those segments to get them across the finish line. Now, this company was only half right, though, in their approach, because they were like, well, we've always sold to mid-market accounts. So enterprise companies don't know that we have an enterprise solution, right? So we're just going to spend a bunch of money with you, Demandbase, to advertise to all those enterprise accounts to get them to our website. And fortunately, we took a breath and said, well, wait, time out. Let's just take a look at what's actually going on your website. Where's that traffic coming from? And when we did, what we found out is that they had plenty of enterprise companies coming to their website, but the problem was all of their messaging was very mid-market focused. So those enterprise companies were coming there and going, oh, they're a mid-market solution, great, I'm gonna go to the Adobe website. They have the enterprise solution, right? So if they had spent money on advertising before looking at their website analytics, they would have thrown good money after bad. But instead, what they did was they made a very simple change to their website. And when somebody who came to their website was a mid-market company, they got the mid-market messaging. When they were from an enterprise company, they got the enterprise messaging. So it was just 2 different messages on their website, and their bounce rates went through the floor. And suddenly they were like, oh, look, all these enterprise companies want to talk to us. So that's just a little bit about having the discrete business objectives, but also taking a look at the data before you make your next marketing move. All right, this is a very, very common question I get is, can we use this for our customers? And the simple answer is absolutely. Reason being, you know your customers far better than you know your prospects. You make a lot of guesses at what your prospects need or want to hear from you. But your customers, you know who they are. You know if you're a SaaS-based business, you know when their renewal cycle is. You probably have a customer success rep that works with them, so they probably know what their business issues are, what their major pain points are, what you think the next best product is that you should be selling them. So long and short answer to this question is absolutely your customers should be part of your ABM strategy. All right, next lesson here. From a director of integrated marketing, now that my whole team is focused on this set of, I think for them it was 500 accounts, they're like, my team's stepping on itself, right? There's only 500 accounts, and so we're hitting them up with every single campaign that we're doing, and we're starting to kind of annoy them, right? Because they're getting a webinar, and then an ebook, and then an invite to a field marketing event, and then an invite to a trade show, and all these things, and they're starting to unsubscribe and all this type of stuff. So this is, kind of the answer to this question lies in attribution. So a lot of us have been focused for many, many years on last touch attribution. Show of hands, who does still focuses on last touch? It's okay, most people do. But the problem is that, as we know, there's a whole set of things that lead up to that MQL. It's not the first touch on that account is what throws them into your sales cycle. There's going to be all sorts of softer touches, less high touch type of stuff, like they're going to swing by your booth at a trade show. They're going to download a white paper. They're going to kind of lurk from afar, read your blog, those sorts of things. And if you look solely at last touch attribution, you're going to make the wrong decisions. So looking at this data here, it shows that as somebody gets closer and closer to actually becoming, kind of a viable prospect for our sales team, that field marketing and demo requests are the 2 things that typically flip them over into an MQL. Well, a very simple interpretation of this could be, well, why are we investing in all that other stuff? Let's double down on field marketing and getting people to fill out a demo request. But to be clear, those 2 programs wouldn't have been successful without all these things that came before it. So understanding that multi-touch attribution, but understanding and looking at this and going, okay, great. So when the one thing you can definitively say is, okay, so people who visit our booth at a trade show, they're probably a little further out from making a buying decision. But when they actually commit to coming to that in-person field marketing event, they're getting serious about actually making a purchase decision. So now, sales team, these guys are ready. You make that campaign or that touch a high priority for them. So then the other thing to talk about when you have all those touches is really figuring out how to align and coordinate around those within your marketing team. And so this is just a sample. This isn't like anybody's real data or anything, but this is just a sample of how to think about it. You're gonna do, call it 4 programs. Let's be clear, most of us probably have 10 times this many programs going on in a given quarter. But then understanding the different accounts that you're going after, as well as the contacts inside of those accounts. So, for a long time, we've been talking about account-based marketing. We just talk at the account level. Well, obviously, you want to get to contacts at the end of the day. So this is a way of looking at not only those accounts, but then the specific contacts inside of those accounts. And those that are engaged, you might give one offer to, and those that aren't engaged, you're going to give something else to. And so this is a way of making sure that you're not crossing wires and stepping on each other's toes with your marketing programs. All right, so lesson 6 here. We've got 2 more. So another thing that people think when it comes to account-based marketing is, oh God, this is going to be a lot of work. We're going to need more people. We're going to have to swap out our entire marketing team. We're going to need to find budget for it and all those sorts of things. And the fact of the matter is ABM doesn't necessarily require, and in most cases definitively does not require more resources and budget. So for anybody who's been through any of the certifications, or I think pretty much any workshop I have ever given, as well as the rest of our marketing team, the these are the 5 key gains of an ABM strategy, or 5 key promises. And we came up with these about, I want to say 2 years ago. And every time I talk to marketers about this, these ring true. We haven't changed this slide, like I said, in a full 2 years. But kind of in the middle there are some things. It's a quality versus a quantity game. No longer are we trying to fill this gigantic funnel at the top with all the marketing leads and contacts and programs as we can, in the hopes that, I think it's 0.3% actually flows through to close one business. That funnel's been floating around out there for quite some time, and it makes me want to cry. Like that, all my effort is going to actually flow through to 0.3% of actual closed one business. Now it's a quality game. Now you're only going after 1,000 accounts or 500 accounts, and so you're much more efficient. It becomes a zero waste kind of strategy, right? You're not going to spend money going after accounts that are never going to buy from you. You have a target account list, you spend all your money and your resources there. So it's much more efficient. So you're not trying to cast this really wide net. And so you're not necessarily going to need more people. And on this next slide, you're not even going to need more budget. And in fact, you're going to have budget savings, because you're not going to try and take out a banner ad on CMO.com because you're like, well, we sell to CMOs, right? True, but probably 2% of the CMOs that go to CMO.com are actually from accounts that you care about. So instead, buy advertising that only targets those accounts on your target account list. Zero waste. Now, the tricky piece of the math here is that typically those touches are actually going to cost you more per touch. But your overall budget's going to be able to go down because the quality of those leads that come in are going to go way up. There's a whole presentation on this that my partner John back there delivers beautifully. I am not doing it justice here, but just know there's a bunch of other slides that go into this that talk about how you're going to shift your marketing budget in an ABM world. And like I said, more often than not, you're going to find savings instead of actual extra expenses. All right, last lesson here. So this one typically comes from larger enterprise companies that I talk to. They're like, hey, our sales cycle is, once again, 18, 24 months long. You talk about, the true testament of if an ABM strategy is working is if you can help increase the average deal size, if you can increase the sales velocity or increase the close rates. But we're not going to know that for a year or 2 years down the road. So, you definitely want to get started with ABM as quickly as you can, but you can focus on campaign metrics in the short term, and then over the course of that year or 2 years, you're going to start to see those end gains that are going to really show the efficiency gains within the organization. So this was a study we did with Topo late last year around the impact of account-based marketing at organizations. And really the net of this slide is that get started with ABM, because in year 1, you're going to start to see some gains. The longer you do it, the better you're going to get at it, and the more and more efficiency you're going to get over time, and the more gains you're going to see. So we like to talk about the efficiencies that you're going to see in 4 different phases. First, SDR team efficiency. Because they're going to be focused on a target account, because you're going to go away from smiling and dialing and trying to get 100 touches out in a day to maybe 50 to just the right accounts, your SDR team is going to be far more efficient and far more effective. They're going to be able to do research. They're going to, instead of just blasting out a bunch of emails and saying, hi, we have something to sell you, they're going to say, hi, you're XYZ company, I know these 3 things about you, and here's why I think our solution can help you. They're going to have a much higher conversion rate in this kind of a world. Now, the marketing team is also going to get more efficient. Like I said, it's kind of a zero-waste strategy. So you're going to be able to generate more pipeline, once again, because you're also working in lockstep with your SDR team. And your cost per opportunity is going to go down, because you're not going to have that added expense to cast that really wide net. It's going to be razor-focused on those accounts you care about. Now, the sales team is also going to get more efficient. Part of it is because you're putting all the right leads in the top of the funnel. So you're going to start to see higher conversion rates from MQL to SAL. But also, as part of the ABM strategy, as marketing, we're going to be in lockstep with the sales team throughout the entire buyer's journey. So it's not just get a lead, throw it in the top, and move on, but rather get a lead, put it in the top. Then as they start to move through the buyer's journey, marketing is going to start to have campaigns that are going to match the buyer's journey in lockstep with what the sales team is saying to help reinforce the message to that buyer as well as that entire stakeholder committee that's involved in that buying decision. So that's how you're going to see that increasing rate as you get closer and closer to the bottom of the funnel. And then last but not least is the corporate efficiency. This is the money slide to show to your CEO. This is where the close rates go up, the average deal size goes up, and the funnel velocity goes up. This is where now the CEO is going to be able to definitively say, wow, my entire organization is just this much more efficient. So instead of getting that single-digit increase in revenue year over year, they're actually going to see a stair step once ABM starts to take off, because everybody's going to be able to do just that much more work for the company. All right, so my key takeaways here, really, the sales and marketing alignment is the foundation of your ABM strategy. I'm sure you've seen it. Of those 1,600 articles that were written in Q4 of last year that Peter talked about, probably half of them talked about sales and marketing alignment. And that's no coincidence. Like, sales and marketing alignment really is that important. I can guarantee you once you start doing account-based marketing, you're going to start getting high fives from your sales team. That's typically one of the questions I like to ask is how many people have ever gotten a high five from their sales team? Show of hands, high fives. All right, few hands up. All of you will have your hands up inside of 2 years once you start practicing account-based marketing. The second thing is think differently about your data and metrics. Think differently about how you're going to evaluate your overall marketing strategy, your ABM strategy. Think differently about those short-term metrics, like your campaign metrics. Focus in on that target account list, not the aggregate numbers. And then last but not least, efficiency is really the name of the game when it comes to ABM. So I have 2 more quick slides here, and then I'll open it up for Q&A. So if you have any other questions, I'm obviously going to be here. We've got 15 minutes to do some Q&A. You can catch me as you see me wandering through the halls today. But we also, that was weird. We also have the expert ABM booth downstairs where lunch and the networking reception and everything will take place. So come by there. I'm not the only person who does this because we're marketers marketing to marketers. Our sales team takes us out on sales calls like they would normally take out sales engineers, right? So our entire marketing team gets out there in front of our clients and prospects. So they'll all be staffing the expert ABM booth downstairs. So come downstairs with your questions. We're happy to answer them. And then last but not least, like I said, this whole presentation has been crowdsourced from talking with B2B marketers like you. So we're starting up meetups, and they are not demand-based meetups. These are truly account-based marketing meetups in 14 different cities in late April, early May. So come join your fellow B2B marketers, learn from them. Everybody's kind of learning as we go along with account-based marketing. So learn from them, share your experiences, and build that network locally in your city. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. Yeah.
So you may end up just referring me to one of the booths downstairs for this. But okay. My question has to do with the perceived buyer's journey versus the actual buyer's journey. You had that great slide. We think it's like this. We pretend it's like this, and it's really like this. Yeah. So in your 100+ customer meetings, what good examples have you seen of structuring campaigns to accommodate the actual buyer's journey?
Wow, that is like the million-dollar question, right? So the buyer's journey is, of course, a really tricky thing. Understanding the data of what your typical sales cycle looks like will help with that. So understanding where all those touches come in a typical buyer's journey for your clients.
And how do you collect that?
How do you collect that data? Through your CRM, through your marketing automation solution. You should have in there. And here's one thing I didn't mention in this session, but mentioned yesterday. Those tools, specifically your CRM and your marketing automation solution, you're going to need to tweak, you're going to need to customize so that those will report at the account level and not just the contact level, right? Because if a marketing coordinator or a marketing intern downloads a white paper, probably that's not going to be your buyer, right? You're going to want to talk to that person's boss or their boss's boss. But it is a signal that that account is looking at you, right? And so you want to take it as such. And so it's understanding, all the touches on that account when they come in the buyer's journey, right? And then aggregating that across all of your now customers to see kind of what does that typical flow look like. And you can start to anticipate some of that stuff. Now, it's a bit of a guessing game. And so that's where, like Peter and Chris mentioned this morning, AI can come in. You can really start to understand what that buyer's journey or what those signals are, and you're not going to have to guess, but the AI is going to figure it out, and it's going to start to recommend the things that are going to help kind of take that buyer's journey from this to this.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
So I'm really interested in setting expectations appropriately. You talked about looking at campaign metrics short term and then business metrics long term. So for businesses that have really long sales cycle, let's say it's 12, 18, 24 months, what time do you advise people to say, hey, this is when we can start looking at business metrics?
Yeah, so what I would say is day one of your ABM strategy, you should absolutely take a look at what the current state is, right? You want to set that benchmark. And then, you can start to track it from day one, right? You're probably not going to see the needle move much. The longer the sales cycle is, the longer it's going to take to see that needle move on those business metrics. But then you're going to start to look at different things. You're going to start to look at, okay, when we do a campaign, what percentage of our target account list are we able to touch with that campaign, right? And then overall, you're going to look at, for a quarter, so our whole marketing team, what percentage of our target accounts did we touch? What percentage of them came to our website? What percentage of them started to show increased activity on our website? Those are the types of leading indicators that you're going to want to put in place, but still tracking those business metrics, because eventually you'll see nothing, you'll see nothing, you'll see nothing, and all of a sudden, maybe 6 months in, maybe 3 months in, it all depends, you'll start to see those numbers start to improve. But it's kind of once again an ungratifying answer of it depends, based on how long your sales cycles are and how quickly your company starts to adapt to an ABM strategy as well. Oh. Uh-oh. Microphone.
Is it on? Oh, now it is. Asking this question might land me at a birds of a feather table of one, but I'm going to ask it nevertheless. So we've talked a lot today and a little bit yesterday covering, trying to get sales and marketing on the same page. What has been your experience talking with customers where marketing is actually kind of the team that has difficulty buying into the ABM? Sales is actually right on board, but marketing would prefer to stick to the old school demand gen model.
Yeah, that's a great question. It was funny yesterday during the certification. That's actually where most people went. They said, sales gets it, right? They've always had a target account list, and they're like, finally, marketing wants to help me with my target account list. And so marketing sometimes has a hard time. And that's where, find some people who believe in it, right? Some champions that can help you champion it inside the organization. But some of it's going to be, if you can get somebody at the leadership level, setting KPIs and MBOs that are going to incent the right types of behaviors is going to be really critical. So I don't know, hopefully it's not like your CMO is a doubter. Hopefully your CMO believes in it as a strategy, and moving from things like having variable comp around MQLs and those sorts of things, but moving rather to pipeline and revenue is going to start to incent the right behaviors. Because, for instance, at Demandbase, we had when we first started to make the switch, everybody who was director level and higher had a pipeline number. Everybody else on the marketing team had an MQL number. And so when director level folks and manager level folks worked on the same program, there tended to be some conflicts. So, for example, obviously everybody's probably familiar with Dreamforce. So Dreamforce is literally around the corner from our office in San Francisco here. And so we run a bunch of workshops like these at our office over the course of Dreamforce. And so the marketing manager who was running our entire Dreamforce presence, and we had set up a series of 4 workshops, so she's doing all the outbound to try and fill the room and stuff. And so she sends out her first email, and she comes running over to me a day later and goes, oh my God, she's like, your rooms are half full already from just one emailing for these ABM workshops. And I was like, that's great. What percentage of them are on our target account list? And she went, oh, I don't know. Because she was still in that quantity phase, right? She was just worried about getting butts and seats. Now, I had actually taken a pipeline number, a pipeline goal for that program, and because she had filled so many of those seats with non-target accounts, I was absolutely determined, I was absolutely not gonna make my pipeline number for that program, right? So, but giving everybody pipeline numbers now incents them all like, oh, in order for it to get to pipeline, it's probably gonna be on our target account list. So now it switches everybody's behavior and everybody kind of falls in line with that mentality. But it's not easy. And we can talk about it a little bit more downstairs if you'd like.
Great, thank you.
All right, I think we've got time for like 2 more questions.
Thank you. So I'm sorry, perhaps I'm slow, but I'm still not understanding how you're saving money with ABM, because we're doing kind of a like semi-ABM right now, and I'm finding it more expensive when I compare it to the broad market campaigns.
Yep.
And also from a content perspective, let's say if you still have to produce the same amount of collateral, the advantage with ABM is you serve it to fewer people, but that actually doesn't cost less, especially if you serve it to your own database.
Yes.
So can you please help me understand that?
Yep. So
Thank you.
the budgeting side of it, like I said, there's a whole presentation on that, and John himself is the mastermind behind that presentation. He'll be down at Expert ABM this afternoon, will you? Okay. So maybe if you ask kindly, he'll pull up that presentation and there was about 20 slides that came before that budgeting slide. So we can walk you through all of that. But when you talk about content, one of my favorite pull-up banners that we had at Content Marketing World 2 or 3 years ago was, quantity is not a content strategy. And the fact of the matter is, with account-based marketing, the one white paper, or who writes white papers anymore, I don't know, the one infographic you have is probably relevant to everybody you want to sell to, but it's making them click on it to actually download it, right? So you're going to want to put the wrapper around that asset, make that relevant to that account, but it could be the exact same asset that's sitting there behind that download now button, right? So it's not necessarily that you have to create a whole ton of new content, but you just have to make sure that the content you currently have, that you make it relevant to the visitor to your website. But once again, we can go over that more downstairs if you'd like. All right. Oh, there's one back there, and I think I saw one over here.
So we're really interested in the account-based engagement around upsell and cross-sell and looking at triggers for propensity to buy.
Yeah.
So I get it when it's around an activity, like you said, a field event or a demo or a meeting. But what are other triggers that we should consider when we're looking at upsell, cross-sell, and pure propensity?
Yeah. So I would say part of it is you shouldn't wait around for a trigger. Part of it is, like I said, you probably have customer success team that talks to those accounts day in and day out. They can start to suss out what the next product is that they need, not to give away our trade secrets at Demandbase, but for about the first 6 months after a customer buys from us, we kind of leave them alone, right? Like they're just getting their feet wet with our products. But after they cross that 6-month mark, we sit down with our CSMs and say, hey, what's that next thing that we think they're gonna buy? Based on your conversations with them, where do you think they're gonna go next? If they've bought analytics from us, is it time for them to buy website personalization? That kind of thing. And then we as marketing map to that, and the messaging on our website starts to switch over to that particular product. Our advertising to them advertises that particular product. All of our outbound emails, same thing, right? So I think it's more of not necessarily waiting for any triggers or signals, but proactively going and getting them, and then marketing to that.
Thank you.
All right, one more question? All right. Oh, there's one more? No? Okay. All right, well, thank you all so much. That's been great.
All right, thank you, Jessica. That was amazing stuff, and I hope those frequent flyer points pay off.